Welcome back to the Chasing Common Ground podcast, formerly known as the Lifestyle Chase. And I have brought back a just awesome dude, Aram Grigorian. Um, I just have to say, a lot of people take for granted the amount of effort that you go to other people's stuff. Like I've been seeing you at all kinds of events, whether I was at the event or whether I saw that you're popping up in like the social clips and stuff. I think it's amazing how much effort that you put in, not only just to connect with your friends in the industry, but also just to show support to other people's stuff, which is a big reason why I've been giving your event shout outs on the last like 8 episodes. Doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I'm like, hey, are you going to the Real Coaches Summit? But I'll let you talk. How are you doing today, Aram?
Dude, I can't thank you enough, man. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to a smarter, better looking brother of mine. And much more tech savvy as well. But dude, there's the puppy. You're gonna be okay, buddy. Um, I'm doing okay. We're what, like 4.5 months? No, probably about almost 5 months away from the event. Got 116 tickets sold. The goal is 250. Tough time of year to do any type of transacting right now. I mean, obviously Black Friday is coming up and everybody's going to be doing that. I don't know. You've probably already seen me advertise that I don't have the budget to drop the price much lower than it already is. So I'm just coming into it as with my normal authentic self, hat in hand, saying, hey, if you want this event to stay alive and you value education and self-development, get yourself a ticket and show up. If that's not a priority to you, then don't be upset when people aren't hiring you because you don't know how to get people results. And the reason why I go to events and the reason why I connect with other coaches and the reason why I do the free online calls every week is because I'm trying to actually contribute positively to this industry. Why? Because this industry is the reason why I get to live in Southern California. It's the reason why I get on a plane whenever I feel like it. It's the reason why I don't have to pinch pennies to go to dinner. And it's given me everything in my life that I've ever wanted. Obviously, it's not philanthropy, like we have to earn a living, but without this industry, I would have no purpose, no identity, no level of fulfillment, and I would probably be doing what most people are doing, which is floating through life and waiting for the next thing to happen. But I wish that more people in our industry valued the industry as much as I do, because it's truly an incredible opportunity for us. Like, we're on the front line of healthcare, man. Like,
Hmm.
whether it's helping people, like I went and got blood drawn this morning, and the guy that walks in to draw my blood is probably, I don't know, 60, 70 pounds overweight. And he's telling me about how he doesn't eat his first meal until 11 or 12. And then, the food recall, which I think is hysterical, which I'm actually going to be doing a live with a girl that I met at Allie's Summit. She works for a clinic and she's in healthcare. And she was talking to me about how, like, when people recall their eating, it sounds like they're eating so well, right? Like, oh, I had eggs for breakfast, I had a salad for lunch, and I had meat and vegetables for dinner. It's like, okay, cool. If you ate like that truly, how is it that you're 100 pounds overweight? So clearly we're missing something. So there's a fundamental disconnect between what people believe to be quality lifestyle or quality nutrition versus the people like us who are actually living and breathing this stuff. And, and as much as I don't want to throw vanity into it and smear vanity all over it, but when you live a certain way, you kind of look the part. It's hard to deny that, and as much as I don't want to like always amplify the vanity aspect of it, but it shows up. Like, it just shows up. Like, there's muscle growth is visible. Leanness is visible. Good behavior is not hard to spot on somebody. Like, you can't tell if somebody's a millionaire, right? You can look at him and be like, oh, that guy looks like a bum. I had a client back in Connecticut who literally dressed like a bum and drove like 96 Honda Civics, and he was worth nine figures.
Yeah.
But she'd never be able to tell because he didn't give a shit. He just cared about like what he did for work. He cared about his kids. His kids would make him buy like these ridiculous AMG Mercedes cars that he never wanted, but he did it for them because they were gearheads. And with nutrition and fitness, like, if you take care of yourself, you kind of look the part. You show up into a room and people have no doubt that you're somebody who prioritizes nutrition and fitness and sleep and hydration and steps. And I just wish that there wasn't such a stigma almost now. I mean, you're in Canada, I'm here in the United States. Like, in the United States, there's a palpable stigma against fit people. Like, it's almost like we're the ones who are now being shamed. Whereas before it was like it was inappropriate to be fat Now it's almost swung in the other direction to where it's like it's icky and inappropriate to have discipline and to have rules around food. And how dare you put something on a scale and weigh it? You're disordered and you're exacerbating all these problems in America. And by you saying no to alcohol, you're part of the problem. It's like when did all of this become completely ass backwards? And was I just asleep the entire time as it occurred? Like at what point, why are we getting punished for being in shape?
Yeah,
It just never made any sense to me. And I'm sorry that I went off on that tangent, but yeah, man, a lot of stuff going on up here today.
totally. And I mean, like, these are the thoughts that probably come through a lot of people's heads. Like, for my podcast, my listenership is probably a mix between general population and a few colleagues and stuff. And a lot of them are probably thinking to themselves, I'm putting in all this effort and I'm having people criticize my effort, but the effort is to be healthier so that I can be better for my family and friends. And it's like that would feel very backwards because like you're preparing good meals, you're cooking at home, you're getting your walks in, you're getting some workouts in. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be like a lot of people bring up the point that like maybe if you miss jujitsu, you could do a home workout, but you're still active that day. Or maybe you didn't make it to your regular powerlifting gyms, so you went to Planet Fitness instead. Like that's how people can kind of stay consistent with things, and where they can have some variability in their life. But yeah, absolutely. There's lots of instances where I'll talk to people and I'll be like, yeah, I actually have like 3 gym memberships. And they're like, what? That's crazy. And I'm
Same,
like,
same.
it makes so much more sense to double down on the things that keep us living longer rather than like worrying, hesitating to invest that much in fitness. Like for me, it's more valuable to me than life insurance because that's my real life insurance. That's like ensuring that I live so that somebody doesn't score big on cashing in my life insurance, you know?
And I actually used to work with a client in Connecticut whose main job was to purchase life insurance from people and give them a cash settlement for it, and then essentially just wait till they died to collect the premium. So let's say like your life insurance was worth 5 million bucks, but you were strapped for cash and you were 65 years old. Well, he would buy the life insurance from you today for such a genius business model. I mean, it was very capital intensive, but like if you think about it, he would pick his job was to find the unhealthiest people. So
That is
basically, he would, you know what I mean? Like he would find like the people with the highest levels of obesity and the most amount of biomarker problems in their blood work, and he would do full workups on them, and that's how they would qualify. And the unhealthier the person was, the more likely he was to buy their life insurance policy because their likelihood was they're going to die sooner. And unfortunately, fitness and nutrition in the general population is viewed as an aesthetic vehicle by and large. I don't want to wrap a complete blanket over it and say that that's what everybody thinks. But let's be honest, Chris, like most people aren't walking around saying, I really wish that I ate better so that I had a better HbA1c and I had lower blood glucose. Like nobody's walking around saying that. They're like, I don't like this. And they point to something on their body.
yeah.
And then they express a level of frustration, which I get it. Listen, I totally understand the desire for vanity. But vanity is one of the hardest goals there is because it tends to be the most all encompassing and the most sacrificial. It requires the highest level of precision and attention paid to all the different variables. General health is not hard. If you walk for 30 minutes a day, you're already lowering all cause mortality by something like 80%. If you're somebody who prepares most of your own food and eats out less, you have a better instance of controlling calories and thus living longer. If you're somebody who sleeps better than somebody who doesn't, you have lower instances of all cause mortality. So like the basics are really easy and they're low hanging fruit, but they're not even that low hanging anymore. Unfortunately, it's gotten to a point now where like I put up a post or I put up a question box yesterday. I said, "What is your one piece of advice to people who are frustrated with their lack of results or fat loss?" And the overwhelming majority of people are like, you have to cook your own food. And I don't understand why that's such a hard concept to grasp. Like, why is it that we can't wake up 20 minutes earlier and make a breakfast? Why is it that we can't spend the night before we have to go to work the next morning doubling down on our dinner, portioning out half of that to put into a container for lunch the next day, or pre-preparing our breakfast or pre-logging our food. Like, why is this such a tedious thing now? Because I'm going to be very direct with your audience. I don't believe in intuitive eating. I don't believe in intuitive eating in today's environment, because today's environment is not conducive to intuitive eating. Because my intuition, Chris, tells me to eat fucking Domino's and Five Guys and chips and cookies, because that shit's delicious. And that's what my intuition wants. It wants to be led towards pleasure and away from pain. That's human psychology. My intuition's like, not, oh, let's go get another piece of salmon or some nice pokey. It's no, I want the greasy burger with the fries and a beer. Like, that's what I want. It doesn't mean that I deprive myself of it. It just doesn't, it just means that it's not my normal consumption pattern. It's not my average daily consumption. But now it's almost like if you eat healthy, you're considered to be dieting. And now I don't like the word healthy. Let me backtrack a little bit. Like, I think the word painting something as healthy is doing it an arbitrary service, because what's your definition of health? Like, is it being a lower weight? Is it looking a certain way? Is it having better blood markers? Is it having a better blood pressure or resting blood heart rate level? Your ability to move your body in different ways, or with endurance or with strength. So I think strength has to be, or I think health has to be defined by the individual. But like, what do we see most often than not in our field? We hear claims like, I'm eating so healthy, but. Well, it's like there should be no but after that. I'm eating so healthy should take care of all the rest of the buts. If you're eating healthy, you should feel it and you should look it. There should be no
Mhm.
confusion about it. Like, when people ask me like what I eat, I'm like, you don't want to know. You don't want to know, because you'll never do it. Because you're not going to get up at 5:30 in the morning like I do and put beef into a pan and then pour egg whites over the top of it and then sit down every single morning with the same breakfast 7 days a week. You're not going to do that. You want this level of illusion of variety, when in reality, you order the same coffee every single day you walk into Starbucks. You get the same dinner, you go to your same favorite place to dinner. You eat the same shit constantly, but then as soon as somebody else tells you that you should be eating similar things, you're like, nope, too much restriction. I'm out. It's because you're not the one creating the rule. Human psychology again. If you're the one who imposes the rule on yourself, you're more likely to follow it. But if I come along and I tell you, hey, Chris, you're supposed to eat like this, no, 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 no. Rebellion kicks in. And I'm going to say, fuck that. I'm going to eat whatever I want. Well, cool. Then why did you hire me? Why did you ask me for advice in the first place? And I think coaches in our field are very, very scared about this idea of a saturated market of coaching, right? There's all these online coaches. And yeah, there's tons. There's tons. But do you think Starbucks gives a shit that there's a Dunkin' Donuts across the street? And do you think Tim Hortons cares that there's a Starbucks across the street? No, they do just fine. They sell the same exact product at a different quality, right? They're basically essentially using a different voice. That's what we are. We're all saying the same shit. We're just saying it to an individual specific audience with our own voice. Our competition is Netflix. It's trauma. It's the holidays. It's people's stress and inability to handle it. It's Grubhub. Those are our competitions, and we're never going to be able to fight that. We can't win that war whatsoever. We have to win these little individual battles with our clients and with the narrative that's being spoken around, and that's how we can maybe, hopefully, enact some type of a long-term change.
Totally. I mean, there's a lot that I can take away from that, but the first thing that popped into my head is like I am very much of like our industry should be considered a big blue ocean, like lots of opportunity to collaborate, help each other out. Like that's something that I admire about the group calls that you're doing. I've had a chance to pop onto a few, but lately I've actually been so busy that I haven't been able to. But the concept that I get from that is like not only are you creating constant awareness around the opportunity for people to meet in person at your event, but also if somebody went to all those group calls, between everybody that goes to them and the amount of collaboration that takes place, a person could probably make more income than they would had they not gone to the calls to be able to afford their trip. Like, there are so many, like, even if somebody was just a beginning in their business and they took away some of the tangible tips on like how to onboard a client or how to create their social media content or how to get over some like resistance with a client that made the difference between them leaving or them renewing. Like there's a lot of like soft skills that you can learn from getting on calls with other coaches where you can retain more clients for longer. Like there's lots of newer people who might have trouble retaining people for more than 3 months. And there's lots of like veterans in the industry who have had people for like a decade
Yep.
and like they've achieved their results, but then they found other areas of their journey to work on. Like maybe
Yep.
they changed fitness modalities, or maybe they moved to a new city and encountered new struggles, or they had something. The number of people who like encounter family loss or divorce, or they meet somebody new and all these dynamics change, and then they still value their coach. So hopefully people, if there's coaches checking this out, they go to those group calls because that's just like such an opportunity. And I'm just like a big fan of like connecting with people. And so like if other people kind of see the value in that, they'll probably progress because like a lot of coaches are evidence of the basically the fuel that connecting with coaches can give to your career. Like conferences have made the careers of many, many people, and even just like group Zoom calls have made the careers of many, many people in this industry. Um, but with that said, there was a while ago, I think it was like 2 years ago, I was hanging out with Andrew Coates and he said something that really like stuck in my head. And it was ahead of another like conference. And he was basically helping me to see like I already valued conferences. I put a lot on the line in the past to go to conferences, but I
Same.
was hesitant to go to one of them. And he was like, remember how you felt like when you realized it wasn't like you weren't the only one like you, like
Yeah.
obsessed about an industry, like super hardworking, always trying to like moving the goalposts. It's never good enough, never good enough. And he was like, imagine feeling that feeling again. And I was like, oh, that's such a better way to like pose or pitch a conference because I do remember that feeling. And like that feeling is worth its weight in gold because like that level of just solidarity that you get from going to events and then like the offline conversations that take place. Like we were talking about AI before we started this podcast. There's a lot of things that we could both help each other out with AI. And those are the kind of conversations that can happen at a conference because you just get the unfiltered version of yourself and all of your colleagues that you want to be connected with. And you make huge strides with like your skill set, what you have access to, who you have access to. Examples of case studies, like things that can help you overcome resistance when you're back to coaching your people again, or when you start coaching somebody new that you've never encountered before. So it's just like it's hands down like it could be a game changer for anybody who chooses to go. And I mean, even like if somebody is just really enjoying their fitness journey and they want to diversify their exposure to the industry a bit more, like it's not a bad idea for like a really passionate fitness enthusiast to go to a fitness conference like this because you get exposure to more different personalities, more different coaches. Most coaches aren't scared of losing their clients to another coach because they're just confident in their ability to build that connection. And that client is only going to benefit more from meeting all these different cool people. And truthfully, like for my situation, I've referred my clients out to other coaches when I could see that it would be like a net positive for that client. And it doesn't bug me. Like they still refer their friends to me because like I might suit a certain part of that person's journey and that person wanted to dive down the rabbit hole of Olympic weightlifting. I'm like, well, I'm not going to teach you Olympic
Yeah.
weightlifting, so my friend Kevin will. And like that's just basically how that goes down. And so like even if I was working with somebody and they went to the conference and then they found another coach that they liked better, it doesn't bother me. Of course, I'd still want to stay in contact because like you build really strong connections with clients. Like you want to always
Absolutely.
be able to talk to them. But like if I knew that somebody was going to crush even more goals because they had a different point of view or a different skill set or a different offer, I'd be like, oh yeah, go for it. Get the bag. Like get have a good experience with your life and like learn and grow. So like hopefully people really start taking things at conferences seriously and like they take into consideration that I'm the guy that like I went to the Kansas City one and I was like broke. And I was eating rice and beans and tuna for the next 3 months afterward, and I'm still telling you to go to the conference. And it's like, I'm not the same as everybody, but like, there's going to be some crazy people out there on the sidelines who need to get to the conference.
I think the problem, man, is that the industry is certainly shifting and changing. I mean, I'm sure you can see it. I can see it. I can feel it palpably every single day. I have a lot of younger coaches who follow me, and it's turning away from what you know and who you know to what you appear to know and just how you appear in general. And I feel as though it's about clothing, it's about aesthetics, it's about lighting, it's about camera angles now. And it's turned into something that's a lot more superficial than it ever was. Like there's plenty of coaches that I learned from who look like they've never lifted a day in their fucking life. Like literally, I mean, look at like let's take a guy like Mike Boyle, for example, from from
Yeah.
Perform Better. Mike is 100 years old. Mike looks like he hasn't trained in 100 years. But Mike is one of the foremost authorities of athletic training in the world. And he's created a multi-million billion probably dollar business. And he certifies coaches, he certifies trainers, he holds seminars, he trains NHL and all sorts of athletes. And now you do one bodybuilding show or you have one fat loss transformation and you get an online weekend certification and now you're coaching people. And that's the credential. That's the
Mhm.
difference between the credentialing that we had to go through and what the younger generation perceives that they have to go through. And I hate being that old guy on his lawn telling kids to get off his lawn, but that's what I feel like now at 40 years old. I've been in this business for 15 years. I've watched it go from being subject matter expert based to customer relations based to now what's in it for me. Like I've never cared about what's in it for me. It's not about me. If somebody pays me $298 a month, I immediately become their servant. That's how I feel. I'm offering you a service. I'm offering you my time. I'm offering you my expertise. I'm keeping the door open for communication. I can't guarantee that you'll walk through it, and I can't beg you to walk through it. And that's your responsibility as a client. But it's not about me. Like if I'm good at my job and you get results and you're happy with the experience and you're happy and fulfilled with the time spent and the words exchanged and the overall climate that you're in and the community that you become a part of, you're going to continue paying me until you feel like you don't have to pay me anymore. That's the best reward I can ever get. When a client leaves me with a level of autonomy, confidence, and self-efficacy, why would I ever want to keep that individual? Like
Mhm.
I'm not going to stick them in a cage and tell them like you have to be here forever. If you feel like you're ready to fly, I'm very happy that I was a part of that growth. And that's the biggest reward for me. Go and tell a couple of your friends, go post it about it on social media. Let's see if it drives people back to me. But if you want to repay me, that's the best thing you can do. And again, like it just comes down to the fact that like we have coaches that are selling coaching incessantly, but there's no product or there's no service behind it. Actually, let's put it this way. There is a product for sure. That's palpable, but there's no service and there's no fulfillment of that service. There's very little care and individuality and communication and standards and values. And it's all rooted in this idea of like, oh, you didn't do well this week? Well, work harder next week. Or, I don't pick up my phone after 5 p.m. because that's my office hours. Like, I'm sorry, you signed up to be an entrepreneur. That means your phone is on 24/7, 365. And if somebody needs something from you, they should be able to access you because if you don't, somebody else will. I tell you what, I will. I'll be that person who picks up the phone at 5 in the morning. I'll be the person who hops on a call at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday because that's when my clients are having problems. They're not having problems at 2 in the afternoon because they're at fucking work and they're not worried about their nutrition and their fitness.
Yeah.
When they're done with the day and the day feels heavy and they're standing in the pantry with their 3 kids fucking screaming at them at 7 o'clock at night on a Thursday, that's when they need to access me. And that's when
Mhm.
I need to be available. So I don't turn off as a business owner. Now, I do things a little differently, you know that. And a lot of people may not agree with my style of coaching because they're like, well, how do you protect your energy? I got plenty of it to go around. Why? Because I fucking love what I do. I woke up this morning. I looked at the clock. It was like 3:41, and I had to pee. I'm like, I could probably sleep through this pee for another 20 minutes, and I did. And then I was like 4:05. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. Like I'm fired up. I already have ideas in my head that I want to talk about. I have things I want to do. I got people I have to get back to. I have podcasts I have to prepare for. I'm excited to get up every single day. Like, I don't need to go to a conference to motivate me to do my job better. I don't need fucking Tony Robbins or Ed Milet telling me how I need to be rah, rah, go get them. I have that intrinsically inside of me because I love what I do. Like, this is the business that I'm meant to be in. It's the industry that I've adore. And I don't see that type of passion from people, dude. I see this like quickest way to 10K. How many photo shoots can I do at a Starbucks? How many Nikes can I buy and talk about? Let's take a look at my schedule and see how busy I am. How does that fucking help any client whatsoever? Like, when I see a coach post about their schedule, all right, so here's Mrs. Jones, who's 150 pounds overweight, and she's got problems, and you're posting about how busy you are. How
Yeah.
how accessible does that make you? You think Mrs. Jones is going to reach out to you and be like, "Oh, by the way, I know you're busy today at Starbucks shooting content, but I'm dying of obesity. You mind helping me out?" Like, no, she's not going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And this like self-servitude that I just see every single, like, listen, there's nothing wrong with a thirst trap picture every once in a while, or there's times where I'll post shirtless pictures on my wall, on my story, but there's always poignancy to it. There's always something that I'm going to write because the attention is not on my body. The attention is on the fact that I have this body because of this ideology. So if you want
Yeah.
this, you have to read this. And that's my hook. That's how I get people to understand that I'm somebody who's trustworthy because I don't give a shit about my physique anymore. I'm 40 years old. And my physique was essentially built by accident when I was 15 years old. And I had a course of hormones running through me as a teenager, and I just happened to pick up weights at the same time. Voila, 7 years later and 50 pounds of muscle growth later. Like, I didn't, and this is something that people don't understand physiologically. Most of our clients are starting this journey or restarting this journey in their 40s and 50s. They've gotten through this 25-year mess of a life of starting businesses, getting into careers, starting families, buying houses, building up equity and stress and relationships and all these other variables. They neglected self-care. Very simply, that's just wasn't their priority. Okay. Understand that if you want to look like me, it might take you 20 years to get there. So maybe by
Yeah.
60, you'll be where you want to be. So now it's like this idea, well, that's too long. Well, what happened in the last 25 years? You could have done something a little bit. You didn't have to completely not go to the gym. You didn't have to completely neglect eating well. You could have just done something in a bare minimum. And maybe you went to the gym twice a week. Maybe you just focused on cardiovascular work in your garage on an elliptical that you bought off Facebook Marketplace for $50. And these solutions to these very simple problems don't feel that simple to people because it's not their priority. It's not their lifestyle. It's not their routine. But we have coaches who this naturally comes easily to because they started at a young age and they had no other options in their life. Like, I don't know any other way to live my life but through fitness and nutrition. I don't. Like, I started early. I don't have kids. I never stopped. Some
Hmm.
people, some people go into like athletics, and that's who they were when they were in their 20s, but then they got a job and athletics were gone and they became sedentary. So if you're restarting this journey in your 40s or 50s as a layperson, so to speak, your expectations of results have to be very mitigated because you have not spent a lifetime building quality habits. You've spent a lifetime actually probably building poor habits. And you now have to rewire your thinking. It's the same thing that like we tell our clients to trust the process. Well, I don't, but we have coaches that do. And if the process sucks, why are you trusting it? But then like they don't want to trust the process when it comes to growing their business. It's like, why is it that you think that because you got a NASM certification yesterday, that you should have 20 clients tomorrow? Because you look the part? Because you have a cert in your back pocket? So does everybody else. What sets you apart? Why should somebody work with you versus working with me who's got 15 years of experience and will actually take the time to explain something to somebody? I have the amount of people that come to me from other coaching programs that tell me things like, well, they passed me off to an assistant coach and I never even got to talk to the person who initially I talked to. Or every time I asked them a question, it took 3 days for them to respond. Or they never explained anything to me, or they never made me understand why they were changing my protocols or my numbers. I just don't understand it. Like the amount of effort and time that I put into educating my clients on just the simple, basic bullshit that we know is true. Like, let's take Chat GPT, for example. What's stopping a coach from taking 30 seconds and saying, how do I explain progressive overload weightlifting to a 3-year old? And then
Yeah.
read
Easy.
that, right? Like, put that into your prompt And then a couple times a week, educate your clients. Shoot them an email and say, "Hey guys, I know that we talk about progressive overload. I just wanted to share a little bit more insight about how it works. Here are some of the variables to focus on. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to host a Zoom call on it."
Hmm.
Boom, added value, fulfillment, honoring your promises, getting people engaged and involved, having them participate, and then building a level of curiosity and autonomy that's never been there before. And I just don't see this happening at a global level in coaching. I see this like handing out of protocols. Here's your numbers. I'll talk to you during your check-in week. That's not how I do things.
No, and I'm very, very similar to you. So it's like I'm resonating with everything that you're saying, and there's kind of like this like unwritten rule that I have for myself. And I like to reflect. I think Disneyland has a rule like this where if you're a Disneyland character and like somebody comes to give you a hug, you can't end the hug until they end the hug. And that's kind of like how I operate within my coaching style.
That's
Like if
awesome.
somebody's asking me a question, I don't care what time of day it is, even if it is like 2 a.m., because like I'm working with different time zones and stuff, I'll respond. If I'm
Yep.
sleeping, I'll respond when I wake up. But like if I'm awake, I'll respond, or if it wakes me up, I'll respond. And it's just simply because like people are asking me a question for a reason. And the urgency of my response matters because if I wait like 8 hours to respond, I'm not going to be able to give a helpful answer anymore because that moment has passed.
Yep.
And you talked about like just how there's so many instances of somebody gets their certification, they look the part, and so they're just like trying to make bank really fast, as fast as they can. And the thing is that like the rise of AI technology is keeping people more honest. Like it creates more merit in the industry. And this is my observations as someone who's seen a lot of different businesses and I've seen a lot of different coaches. You really have to know your shit in order to succeed now because the smart coaches have the AI too. And usually the smart coaches are better at the AI. So they're able to serve their clients even better. Like there's little things like we had talked about how like even just running through like a scenario through ChatGPT. Like this is something that I do. So something that I do is if somebody has like a challenging situation for me and it's over a text, sometimes I'll use ChatGPT to give me an unbiased view of their situation so
Interesting.
that so that I can kind of detach my emotions from my response. So it's not a response of me, 32-year-old doing jujitsu who's pretty strong. It's more of a response of somebody who can relate to this like maybe they're like a 70-year-old guy who farmed for a living and like
Yeah.
they don't resonate with me on everything.
Yeah.
That allows me to help them help themselves with my response. And sometimes I will use different coaching books to kind of like help me. And so ChatGPT will be able to source out some of the key concepts of different coaching books. And I could be like, based on the concepts shared in like, let's say conscious coaching,
Okay.
how would you respond to this situation? And it just gives me a new lens on responding to their question in a way that I can answer their question in a more powerful way, not just through my own little like echo chamber, my own little like lens and experiences, but I can actually like look at it from a point of view where they can like take this new information and possibly move the needle forward and not feel stuck, not feel misunderstood. There's lots of times people ask us things and we respond thinking that we knew what they asked and we really didn't.
Yep.
So like these are things that those people who maybe look super jacked and they just want to make their 20,000 a month really fast, like they don't think of that. I guarantee they don't think of that. They don't know how to do it. They're not doing it. So it just excites me because it's like I know that like I am teaching smart people how to do smart things and I'm doing the smart things and that's just going to kind of like some people are just going to have more momentum than others and they're going to kind of steamroll through. And that is it's I like to liken it to jujitsu because if you don't show up to jujitsu, if you cannot bounce back when you've been tapped or when you've lost a competition, like you're not going to get to that black belt. Like people who are sore losers, don't make it through the belt system. People who aren't good teammates don't make it through the belt system. It's so merit based. And like you have to be a good teammate. You have to show up for yourself when you don't want to. You have to recover from injuries. Like yesterday, my lip was swollen because I got like knocked in the face. The swelling came down fortunately, but it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I'm gonna have to show up again, even if I look a little funny for a day. And it's just like these are the things that are gonna weed out the people that shouldn't be in the industry, and they're just gonna end up selling something else,
Yeah.
insurance, whatever, and that's
Yeah.
totally fine. But it's like we almost have more things keeping people honest and with integrity than we did before because of the power of AI and how it directly impacts people's livelihoods, which can be scary. But if we look at it from a positive point of view, where we're always connecting with new people who can teach us new things, when we're constantly learning new things, then the scariness fades away. If we
Yeah.
are sitting on the sidelines, not willing to go to the conference where we can learn the new things from all the nerds with the AI and stuff, that gets scary. So hopefully people take that as like a sign, just like show up to things, even if they show up to the Zoom calls. Like your Zoom calls that you're putting on, they're awesome. And if somebody was
Thanks, man.
like if somebody, I think both of us can speak to this. Like if somebody was like, "Hey, you guys talked about something on a podcast. Can you like hop on a 20-minute call with me and like explain more?" I would say yes. I'm pretty sure Ram would say yes.
Yeah.
It's there's just so much opportunity in this industry, and like there's so many ways that we can make it better and ideally hopefully change like the landscape of both American and Canadian health, because like both of
Yeah.
our countries are struggling with like their health markers. Like you take like 10 people in a room and you get everybody to check their blood pressure, most of them are going to be high blood pressure, and they might not even have a clue. And like even if you bring it up, it upsets people, which makes me confused because I'm like, I just told you you had high blood pressure. Let's fix it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm like, what?
Yeah. This isn't, at the end of the day, obviously things can become life threatening at some point, but like, let's be honest, most of the time, like the clients that are following fitness related, nutrition related content, they know the basics. I
Yeah.
mean, most people do. I think if you were to walk around your average mall and ask 20 people questions and you ask them like what's important when it comes to like health and fitness, they'd probably be able to say shit like strength training and protein and calorie consumption, but who's actually living and practicing any of that stuff? Like that's the problem. Um, so I think that we have a responsibility, and our responsibility really is much bigger than just earning a living. And yeah, earning a living is going to give us the flexibility to be better coaches and to be better professionals. And I think like there's a difference between the coach who has to take on every single client because they're in the scarcity mindset because they don't make a lot of money versus the person who's at my level who can basically say like, oh yeah, if I lose a client, I'm actually kind of happy I lost that client because that client was a pain in my ass, or that client did jack shit to be part of the process. So I'm that dead weight is now gone, and that opens up my mental space. Because I mean, we've all had them, right? Their name pops up on our phone, and like this feeling of dread comes over us. At that point, that's actually a pretty good sign that you should probably not even be working with that person. But if you have 5 clients and you're making $1,000 a month, are you going to make that call? No, probably not. You're gonna be like, fuck it, I'm going to grind through and I'm going to keep serving that individual until they drive me crazy. Whereas when you're making $20,000 a month and you lose that $298 a month client and they leave, you're like, oh, thank fucking God. It saved me a hard conversation.
Hmm.
And that's just the difference between the levels that you're at. Like, and it's hard for me to sit here and say, like, oh, invest $1,200 and come to my event because you don't know what the ROI is going to be. You don't know what your potential return on investment could be because you're not there in that room and you have no idea. And it also assumes that you're going to go to that event, talk to as many people as possible, make a ton of connections, soak up all the information, understand the information, clarify the information with questions to the presenters, and really get your full money's worth while being there. But how many people are actually doing that? So, for me, I can keep telling people that, hey, there's 14 amazing speakers coming that are going to be talking about very, very practical subject matter points. All meals are included and the hotel is cheap. So that keeps the logistical stuff very, very easy and simple to be on site and not have to worry about going anywhere. Vegas is one of the easiest cities in the country to fly into. So direct flights are relatively prevalent. Like I couldn't make it easier than I did, but even with that, people will still find objections to going. And what are those objections usually rooted in? It's financial. It's I don't want to, or I can't spend the money. It's usually I don't want to. It's rooted or masked as I can't spend the money, but we both know it's I don't want to spend the money.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll go spend it on something else. They have no problem paying for a bachelorette party that's going to cost them $1,500, right? And flying down to Cabo or going to Vegas for a bachelorette party. That gets done every single summer. But when it comes to investing in your own education, your own skill set, which you'll never actually lose, which you can only amplify and strengthen over time, that's too much of an expense. And by the way, it's fucking tax deductible too. Like literally from the second you leave your house to the second you come home, every penny spent while you're on that trip, every penny that's spent on that trip, while on that trip, approaching that trip is tax deductible because it's a business expense, because it's in the development of earning a revenue. So I don't know, man. You and I have always been people that are very much prone to self-investment because we've seen the return on that self-investment, but other people just don't see it. And then they're also the same. It's no different than the client who I'm not going to track my food, but I'm going to be disappointed about my lack of fat loss. Okay, cool. Here's a tool that works really well. You're just deciding not to use it. So you also then express frustration because you have access to a tool you don't want to use. Well, here you go. Here's a conference with 14 of the best professionals out there that I know, presenting on 14 topics that I know will resonate with your clientele base that you struggle with on a daily basis. And your unwillingness to spend money to go there is going to be the same exact reason why a year from now you're stuck in the same spot, wondering why you can't keep a client for more than 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. The first couple of years of my career, I maxed out 2 credit cards to fly to events, to buy classes, to go to seminars, to do online seminars. Like I did everything I fucking could in my power to become as educated as humanly possible. Now, I think there is a limit to how much you should educate yourself. Like you don't need to go to every seminar and go to every conference and buy every class, but you should know a lot about a lot because our clients are dealing with a lot. Our clients are dealing with emotional eating issues. Our clients are in menopause. Our clients have injuries. Our clients have body image issues. Our clients don't know what hypertrophy training means. Our clients don't know what zone 2 cardio is. And if you don't have an answer to those questions or those problems, how are you going to be able to steer somebody's outcome at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you were talking about all that stuff, I thought of a very tangible path for people to basically make a return on investment at the conference. And this is how I would lay it out. Essentially, if you went to the conference, and as much as I like to promote that people have fun socially, just if you kept it under control, didn't make any bad impressions, and if you showed up and you connected with as many people as possible, but before you connected with them, you had established like your call linked book people on calls, and perhaps you started a podcast, you would be able to get more people booked on a podcast than you would be able to had you not shown up. And I know this
Yeah.
from
Oh, yeah.
experience. Like there's lots of people at that event who have a full booked calendar where they don't go on podcasts anymore. If you're at the event, you'll probably get them on your show. And if you don't
Yep.
get them on your show, you're going to get people who are further along in their business journey on your show that you wouldn't have met otherwise. Like there's lots of people who have never heard of me, and they'll meet me at the conference, and I can help them with things that people don't even know that I can help with, like landing pages, funnels, email lists, podcasts, video editing faster, making graphics in Canva with AI. Like there's lots of stuff there. And then if I don't know how to do it, there's a strong chance that I can point at the person in the room who does know how to do it. And because I like efficiency, I'm going to. Like I'm not going to pretend that I can't do anything that I can't do. And so
Yep.
through that, like I've seen it happen time and time again. Like there's lots of people who basically book their year's worth of podcast guests at the event. They walk around with
Yep.
their phone. They're like, here's my link. Just scan this, book yourself in. And then they're good. That saves them time throughout the year. And they have these people on their calendar. They've gotten access to people who they would have to like filter through the assistant to get to that person. Like some of your speakers, I can't book them on a podcast. If I go to the event, I can probably book them on a podcast.
Yep.
And so like it is there is no reason to not go to the event if you want to be in the industry in the years to come. If you want to leave the industry, that would be the reason to not go to the event. But if you want to be in the industry in 2026, then go to the event. So it's just like
That,
very
that and
clear.
that's what I always say too. It's like, do you not like people that are like, oh, I can't plan that far ahead. I'm like, April's gonna be here in like 3 minutes.
Yep.
Like it's already the end of November. November just started yesterday.
Yep.
So it's like it's like, okay, December, January, February, March. So we have 4 full months. We know that December is like the mail it in month for everybody. That's where everybody gets depressed. Everybody throws all their shit away. Everybody's going to restart in January, and that's when the focus. And then everybody comes out of the gate hot. So I'm assuming that I'll probably end up selling more tickets in the beginning of the year than I probably have this entire time. But I've just never understood this level of like reactivity versus proactivity. Like for me, like I'm looking at Nick Lamb's event, Raise the Bar in February already. And I'm already thinking, okay, like how do I make that work? Like I know I got my event coming up 6 weeks later. Does it make sense for me to fly out there? I want to support Nick. I want to see the speakers and hang out with my friends. I want to maybe be able to recruit a couple of people to come to my event in Vegas since they're already in the spirit of events. I'm going to fly out there. I'm going to go. I'm going to start looking at flights in December. I'm going to start booking a hotel. Like, why the fuck wouldn't I? And again, I understand that I have resources that younger or newer coaches don't have. But there's a reason why I am where I am. Like it's because I put in these 15 years and I've done it the hard way and I've done it the long way. And I didn't do the quickest way to 10K. I did it this slow burn grind way of just show up every single day incessantly, ask for nothing in return, and then eventually it just comes back to you. Because if you plan on staying in the industry, that's what I think a lot of people don't consider is like if you actually plan on being here again a year from now, why would you not want to be in a better spot? Why would you not have more education, more contacts, more networks? You're going to have access to people like fucking Joey Munoz and Joe Zundel and Nick Shaw, who was the co-founder of Renaissance Periodization, is going to be sitting at a table eating lunch with you. Alan Aragon is going to be having dinner with you. Barbie Bulls, who's helped thousands of women in menopause, is going to be able to have breakfast with you. And these are the opportunities you don't want to have. You'd rather hide behind your computer or go to Starbucks and do photo shoots. Just make it make sense for me, Chris. It just doesn't add up to
It
me.
doesn't make sense to me either. And I have another tangible tip. If somebody is out there and like, yeah, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, well, I'll just give you another thing that you can do. If somebody was just short the amount of funds that they needed to make to go to the event, but they had just a little bit of time in their week, go get a part-time job at a bar and keep business cards in your pocket. You're gonna meet so many people. Like I can tell this from experience. I spent 1 year working at the bar, not even as a bartender, but as a porter. And from just existing, I got clients. I didn't even have to talk about that I was a trainer. It was very apparent apparently,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, like I got clients from working at the bar because people would come up to me and they knew me from other things because it's like if you're at a bar in the place that you live, you're probably going to come across a few people that you know. And they were like, "Are
Yep.
you still taking on clients?" And I was like, "Yep. Let's
Yep.
set up a consultation. I work here till 2 a.m. I'll consult with you at 8 a.m. See you at the gym." And that resulted in over a period of time thousands of dollars in revenue, and then that pays for the conference. And the
Yep.
sacrifice was giving like maybe 10 hours a week to a job, maybe 5 hours a
Uh,
week. Like it doesn't take much. People can get creative. People could, just because they can't bring in revenue from one path doesn't mean that they shouldn't deny all other paths that they could use to get the funds that they need to go to the conference to get to their next level.
you can go drive Uber.
Exactly. Uber is
You
a
can
really good one.
Yeah, you can go drive Uber. You can work for Uber Eats. You can work for Grubhub. You can work for these delivery services and sit in your car and listen to podcasts and audiobooks for 5 hours a day, self-develop the entire time and soak all this information up while you're dropping off people's food and making 12 to $15 a run. It's not a lot of money, but it's better than you sitting around wondering where your money's going to be coming from. Like America, especially, I mean, again, I'm not well versed in Canadian finances, but I would imagine it's not much different there. But America is so easy to make money in. I mean, think about our job, right? Like if you really like if 20 years ago somebody told me that I could be making 5 figures standing in front of a laptop in shorts in Southern California, I would be like, no, you're insane. You're insane. That doesn't make any sense to me because I grew up with that old school mentality of like, if you don't have a briefcase and you're not wearing a suit, you're not making any money. Or if you don't have like a profession that's a skill, like a carpenter, an electrician, or a doctor, or a lawyer, then you're not going to be taken seriously. But like entrepreneurship is at an all-time high. People are starting businesses left, right, and center because we live in a service-based economy. People have money, people have resources, but what they don't have is time. So they don't want to take the little bit of time that they do have and allocate it to figuring shit out. So a lot of people are actually willing to spend money on people who will figure it out for them. That's where we come into play. You don't know about nutrition and fitness? Cool, I'll figure that out for you. The
Hmm.
same way that you're paying somebody to cut your lawn, the same way you're paying somebody to take care of your car, the same way that you're paying somebody to take care of your dogs while you go away for a weekend, we are a service. And if we provide a quality service, even if that service doesn't always produce a result, because the results are going to hinge upon the plan being good, A, and then the follow through of that plan. We can't guarantee part B. We can certainly guarantee part A, right? We can guarantee a good service and a good plan, but we can't guarantee that our clients will follow through with it. But if we can at least guarantee half of that equation, and we can create a good client experience to where they're happy, they're being fulfilled, they're feeling like they're getting their end of the bargain, even though they're not showing up for themselves, maybe, but at least you're delivering everything you said you would with integrity. And then you're providing a good community for them to be involved in. Why the fuck would they leave?
Hmm.
You've just given them all the reasons to stay because they probably don't have fitness minded friends in their small town that they live in. Their spouses might not be supportive of their journey, but here you are.
So during this part of the episode, Aram's connection just kind of lagged. So I don't know what he said, but by the time I finish talking, he'll be back.
So I'm just going to change the narrative. And I'm just going to offer this very safe, very free space for people to collaborate. We're going to share thoughts. We're going to share frustrations. We're going to share case studies. We're going to share backgrounds. We're going to share education. And who knows, maybe this thing grows and it keeps going. And all of a sudden we realize that business coaching is actually not even something that we have to pay for anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like there's just so much to gain from connecting. So I hope that like people hear this episode and they at least consider just connecting with another coach. Like even if they don't go to the event, find another coach to connect with, to hop on Zoom calls, go to Aram's group Zoom calls, and if people follow you on Instagram, they'll be able to kind of like find the way to sign up for that stuff, right?
They just need to send me their email.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody wants into the group Zoom calls, the free weekly one, the two twice a week ones, just DM me your email or DM Chris your email and he'll DM it to me.
Yep.
I mean, I'm on Instagram every single day. My email is very easy to remember. It's aram at 4weekstothebeach.com. My Instagram is
And then we had another issue with the connection. So Aram's Instagram is 4 weeks to the beach. And to learn more about the conference that we talked about, go to Real Coaches Summit 2023 with numbers.com. That's Real Coaches Summit
and
2023.com.
it's like, listen, like you got all the tools you need. Women in menopause aren't like these special flowers who are gonna like not abide by the laws of thermodynamics or progressive overload. It works the same way with them too. Like, yes, they have some hormonal challenges, and yes, they have some lifestyle challenges at that age bracket, but it's not going to be that wildly different that you don't know how to handle it. And she's like, wow, I never thought I could have that kind of confidence. And I'm so happy that you told me that because now I could have lost that client, but now I have them. And like that one conversation just built somebody's ability to handle and serve somebody. So it's like these are the types of things that are happening every single day. And I'm so happy to be able to be a part of it. And I don't have it all figured out, dude. Like I fucking suck at marketing. I mean, I don't suck at content creation, but I'm not doing anything special. I'm just throwing stuff out that is in my head. I'm not always the best at follow up. I'm not always the best at leads or funnels or magnets like I'm not good at all that stuff. But me hopping on a Zoom call with 50 other people who might know about that stuff is going to make me a better coach. And what
Yep.
I know about science, I can teach them, and what they know about marketing, they can teach me. Like that's how this industry grows. That's how clients begin to trust us more. That's how we all make more money because what is it? A rising tide floats all rises or what is it? A high tide rises all
Rising
boats.
tide lifts all ships or something
That's
like
what it
that.
is. That's
Yeah.
perfect. So, and that's how I truly feel, man. Like we can all do really, really well if we stop the infighting and the bullshit and the comparison game and we just got on the same page. Like what you know, share with me, and what I know, I'll share with you, and we'll all be better for it.
Absolutely, totally. And with that, to keep us on time, I'm just gonna say thank you so much, Aram, for coming back on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Dude, thank you as always. I appreciate it. Anybody that's got the pleasure to work with you is a lucky person. And anybody that's got had the ability to work with you on a professional level, B2B, um, I'm gonna definitely be picking your brain about the AI stuff because that's stuff that fascinates me.
Yep.
And you'll be at will you be at Raise the Bar in Dallas?
I am tentative on that one, but
Okay.
I've definitely got yours locked in. So if nothing
Okay.
else, I'll see you at yours.
Yeah. I mean, I'll
But
see you in
yeah,
April, but I'm sure I'll see you on the internet almost every day.
probably. All
Yeah.
right. We'll talk to you
Thanks, brother.
later.
Thank
See
you,
ya.
man.